My name is Daniel Taylor, and I've always believed in the idyllic charm of suburban living. The white picket fences, the neatly trimmed lawns, and the friendly neighbours who seem to embody the spirit of community. I lived next door to the best neighbour anyone could ever ask for, the kind of person that would do anything for you. But now, everything has changed. Now, every creak of a floorboard and every rustle of leaves outside my window sends shivers down my spine. It all started with Walter Miller, the seemingly friendly neighbour, hiding a dark secret that would unravel the very fabric of our peaceful existence. Walter lived in a charming 2-storey house at the end of the cul-de-sac. His meticulously maintained lawn was the envy of the neighbourhood, and his garden bloomed with vibrant colours that seemed to defy the seasons. Every evening, he could be found on his porch, a friendly wave and a warm greeting for anyone who passed by. It was impossible not to be charmed by his infectious smile. I moved in 6 months ago, and not long after I placed down my last box in my empty living room. He was ringing my doorbell with a gift basket and introduced himself. He was the personification of amiable. He had a perpetual smile etched on his face, and his warm greetings made you feel like he were the most important person in the world. Living next door to him felt like a stroke of luck, a sentiment shared by the entire neighbourhood. Little did we know, behind Walter's friendly facade, a sinister secret slumbered. The first inkling of unease crept into my consciousness on a chilly autumn evening. I was raking leaves in my front yard when Walter strolled over, a steaming cup of cocoa in his hand. His eyes, hidden behind a pair of round spectacles, twinkled as he offered me the cup. "Thought you could use a warm-up, Daniel," he said, that ever-present grin never leaving his face. I thanked him, sipping the cocoa, its rich aroma filling the crisp air. As he chatted about the upcoming neighbourhood barbecue, I caught a fleeting glimpse of something beyond his charm, a shadow that flickered in his eyes, a depth that seemed to hint at something concealed beneath the surface. But I dismissed it as paranoia, a trick of the wavering autumn light. Weeks passed, and Walter's friendly gestures continued. He mowed my lawn when I was away, helped me to fix a leaky faucet, and even offered to walk my dog, Max, when I was too tired after work. His eagerness to assist bordered on the relentless, yet the neighbourhood embraced it with open arms. No one suspected the darkness that lingered in the corners of his life. It wasn't until the night I found myself unable to sleep that the first tendrils of fear slithered into my mind. The clock ticked away in the silence, its rhythmic sound amplifying the emptiness of my house. That's when I heard it, the faintest whisper, like the rustle of leaves outside my window. Curiosity compelled me to investigate. I padded down the hallway, the floorboards creaking beneath my weight. The whisper persisted, growing louder as I approached Walter's house. It wasn't a normal conversation. It was more like a hushed symphony of eerie voices, their tones weaving a haunting melody. Against my better judgment, I pressed my ear against the wall. The voices, a cacophony of indiscernible whispers, seemed to seep through the bricks, wrapping around my senses like ghostly fingers. Fear coursed through my veins as I recoiled, retreating to the safety of the bedroom. The next day, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was amiss. I began to notice peculiarities. An odd stain on his doorstep, windows that never opened, and a peculiar aroma that hung in the air around his property. Driven by an inexplicable compulsion, I decided to confront him. I knocked on his door in trepidation. He had a metallic black door knocker which looked like a gargoyle. Odd, I'd never noticed that before. He opened it with that ever-present smile, although now it started to appear fake or insincere, considering my new suspicions. "Daniel, what brings you here?" he exclaimed, his tone a perfect blend of surprise and hospitality. I hesitated, my nerves betraying my resolve. I heard something last night. Whispering. Like voices. Is everything okay?" His smile faltered for a split second, a subtle flicker of discomfort. But just as quickly, it returned, as if a switch had been flipped. "Oh, you must have heard the wind. Old houses like these tend to be a bit noisy. Nothing to worry about, my friend. You must come in for a cup of tea. You must be freezing." His hand wrapped itself around my back, and he ushered me inside. Somehow, he managed to break down my resolve yet again and completely disarm me. As things progressed, I couldn't shake the feeling that Walter was carefully diverting the conversation away from anything personal. He spoke of distant places and amusing anecdotes, but whenever I veered towards questions about his past or his family, he skillfully changed the subject. It was as if he were hiding behind a carefully crafted facade, allowing only a curated version of himself to be seen. After one of the most flavourful cups of tea I've ever had, as Walter bid me farewell with that familiar smile, I couldn't shake the suspicion I was dancing on the edge of a mystery far darker than I could fathom. Determined to uncover the truth, I delved into research about Walter Miller, scouring the internet for any information that could shed light on his enigmatic past. The search yielded little. No family photos, no social media presence, and no documented history beyond his arrival in our town a few years ago. It was as if he had materialised out of thin air, leaving behind no trace of his existence before settling in our neighbourhood. My unease deepened, but the lack of concrete evidence left me in a perpetual state of uncertainty. However, despite his reassurances, a cold shiver ran down my spine later that evening. The unease persisted, gnawing at the edges of my sanity. Days turned into nights, and the once familiar streets of our neighbourhood became a labyrinth of fear for me. Now that I was aware of this peculiar behaviour and the feeling that something was not quite right, I began to notice things in the neighbourhood. Whispers circulated among the neighbours, tales of strange occurrences and unsettling visions. Pets went missing, and sleep-deprived residents reported hearing eerie melodies in the dead of night. However, this was all chalked up to urban legends and rumours, the result of imaginations running away with people. It was laughed off, and almost became a running joke in the town. Eventually, I decided I couldn't take it any longer. I had to know more, to silence the nagging fears in my mind, driving me insane. One night, I stepped out of the house along with Matt, my loyal companion. As I approached Walter's house under the moon's pallid glow, a sense of foreboding settled over me, like a thick fog. The basement window, usually tightly shut, was slightly ajar. Max whimpered, sensing the tension in the air. I hesitated for a moment, then pushed the window open, its rusty hinges groaning in protest. The darkness below seemed to swallow the feeble beam of my flashlight as I descended into the abyss. The basement was a labyrinth of dusty boxes and forgotten relics, the air heavy with a nauseating mixture of mildew and decay. I ventured further, my senses heightened by the unsettling quiet. Then, a muffled sound reached my ears, a rhythmic thud that resonated through the walls. I followed the noise to a door, slightly ajar at the end of the corridor. The whispers grew louder, their haunting melody reaching a fevered pitch. With trepidation, I pushed the door open, revealing a sight that would forever haunt my nightmares. A dimly lit room unfolded before me, adorned with sinister symbols painted in crimson on the walls. In the centre lay a grotesque tableau, a series of bound figures, their eyes vacant, their mouths moving in silent supplication. At the centre of it stood Walter, a dark robe draped over his form, chanting incantations that seemed to bend reality itself. Horror paralysed me as I witnessed the true nature of my friendly neighbour. Walter Miller, the seemingly benevolent figure, was a practitioner of dark arts, his basement a twisted sanctuary for unspeakable rituals. The realisation struck me like a physical blow, sending shockwaves through my entire being. Walter turned, his eyes locking onto mine with a malevolent gleam. "Daniel, my dear friend, you were never meant to see this. But now that you have, there's no turning back." Fear propelled me backward, and in my haste, I stumbled over an object on the floor, a dusty, forgotten tome. As I fell, its pages opened, revealing ancient incantations and eldritch symbols that danced before my eyes. I felt an unseen force, a spectral hand reaching out from the depths of the abyss. In that moment, I understood the true horror that lurked within Walter's seemingly friendly demeanour. He wasn't just a neighbour with a dark secret. He was a harbinger of malevolence, a puppet master orchestrating a symphony of terror that had ensnared our quiet town for years. I scrambled to my feet, fleeing from that accursed room and the horrors it contained. As I emerged into the cool night air, gasping for breath, I knew I had to reveal the truth to the town. The facade of suburban tranquility was shattered, and the nightmare that dwelled next door had to be exposed. The following days were a blur of fear and paranoia as I gathered evidence and rallied the townsfolk. The whispers of Walter's unholy rituals spread like wildfire, igniting a collective sense of dread. When the truth was finally revealed, the town recoiled in horror, and Walter Miller vanished into the shadows, leaving behind a legacy of nightmares. Once a haven of suburban bliss, the town now bore the scars of a dark secret that had festered for years. The white picket fences seemed to mock the facade of normalcy, and the neatly trimmed lawns hid the sins buried beneath the surface. In the aftermath, I often found myself staring at Walter's empty house, haunted by the knowledge that true evil could lurk behind the friendliest of smiles. The echoes of that night still reverberate in the shadows, a chilling reminder that darkness can wear the guise of the most inconspicuous of people.